Hi, my name is Sheena Davis, and I'm a student at Gateway Community College in Edgewood, Kentucky. And I am going to be talking about a nursing facility case study that was published May 1st, 2005 by the Texas Department of Aging and Disability Services. And it is a case study involving a 54-year-old male by the name of Milton. Milton is a long-haul truck driver who was involved in a serious accident on the interstate, which left him with serious injuries, including a broken neck and paralysis to his lower extremities. After the accident, Milton was put in a rehabilitation facility for about 6 weeks, and he really didn't give a lot of thought to long term and where he would be. Really thought he was just going to get out of the rehabilitation facility and go on with his life. However, he was transferred to a nursing facility over 600 miles away from his home in Amarillo, Texas, and away from his only family member, his young son, who he communicated with daily. After he was there for about 2 years, he decided that he really wanted to get back home to Marble Falls near his son, and he just couldn't see himself living in that facility, and he thought he was much too young to spend the rest of his life there. At that time, he reached out to the facility staff and started asking questions about how he can make a transition back to the community. It was at that time the staff put him in contact with a relocation specialist. The relocation specialist was really Milton's advocate and really helped him pursue getting back into the community. And because there were so many organizations and networks that were involved in making this transition, the relocation advocate really did a lot of the work for Milton. And he had to go through the dad's community service, and that is for aging and disabilities. He had to go through AAA, which is an agency on aging, and he had to go through TAS, which is a transitional assistance service. And there's several other organizations and networks that were involved in his transition. Milton wanted to get back home, and he wanted to be near his son. He wanted to have an apartment big enough that would accommodate both himself and his son to stay with him. He needed a special shower. He needed to have wheelchair accessibility. He needed to be on a special bus line for a paratransit service to get him to and from his medical appointments. And he wanted to be near a bookstore and a grocery store. So one of the barriers he ran into making this transition was the housing end of it. There's only 3 sources in the state of Texas that an individual such as Milton can go through in order to help and assist him getting back in the community. And because he had all these special needs and requirements, it took several months for him to get back into an apartment back in his hometown. In order for him to make that transition, though, 3 things needed to happen for him to get discharged. The first thing that would need to happen is the home health agency had to accept Milton's referral. The second thing that needed to happen is the dad's case manager had to verify he met all the eligibility criteria. The third thing that needed to happen was the services had to be identified. Once all these things were met, Milton could be discharged, and after a few months he was able to do that and get discharged. The networks that I spoke about earlier were still involved with this transition, and he ended up utilizing the TAS wraparound agency, and they gave him $2,500 for the rental part of it, where he was going to live. And the Medicaid part of it that didn't cover his housing was the TLC. TLC is a transition to life in the community, and they would allocate towels and utensils to eat with, sheets, that kind of thing. And so they were another organization that was involved in his transition. The home health agency was also part of it, and they are the ones that provide Milton with his nurse and his care and any other issues that may arise after his transition has taken place. And they were also a part of the emergency response system that he was given. And it's a button that he has, and he pushes it if he's ever in trouble, and The only incident that Milton encountered was one where he didn't feel well and his nurse hadn't shown up. And as a result, he pushed his emergency response system button and they called him immediately. And the neighbor from downstairs was also interlocked with that phone call. So they came up and assisted him as well. Once they were in contact with Milton, they got another nurse out there immediately and made sure that Milton was taken care of. The reason I chose this case study today is because I wanted to show everyone how many organizations are involved in making a transition like this. It's not just as simple as getting up and walking out and getting back in the community. It involves several networks, several organizations, and everybody has to work together to make this happen. And since I'm going into human services, that's what the helper does. They get in contact with different organizations to help the individual that is in need. And everyone works together to make that happen. And that's one of the reasons I chose this case study, is to show just how many people have to be involved to make one thing happen. Thank you for listening.